There are seasons in life, especially in the life of faith, where the battle just feels absolutely relentless. If you've ever felt that kind of spiritual exhaustion, like you're just running on fumes, then this is for you. We're going to dive into Psalm 92 and find what is essentially a framework of remembrance designed by God specifically for the battle-weary soul.
So let me just ask you straight up. Do you ever feel like the fight is just endless? That deep sense of being worn down by the sheer constant effort of it all? This isn't just some abstract idea. It is a real gut-level experience for so many of us. And it's so important to just say this out loud. This is a real thing. Faith can and does grow tired. I mean, the weight of suffering, the sting of a deep disappointment, or honestly, even just the slow, daily grind of obedience in a world that often seems to reward the exact opposite, it all takes a toll.
Now, what's so incredible is how the Bible speaks directly into this. The Psalms, as John Calvin famously put it, are like an anatomy of all the parts of the soul. And Psalm 92 in particular, well, it's not just a text to study. God gave it to us as a song to be entered into, a kind of pastoral tool designed for rest and renewal.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this song together. First, we're going to talk about remembering the rescue of grace. That's about looking backward. Then, we'll get into seeing with the eyes of wisdom, which is all about our present. After that, we'll see how we are rooted in the hope of the gospel for the future. And finally, we'll pull it all together to understand what it means to have the endurance of the remembered.
All right, so this first step on the path might feel a little counterintuitive, especially when you're tired. See, it doesn't start with our problems. It starts with praise. The psalm says it is good to give thanks to the Lord. Notice that. It's not just commanded, it's good for us. It's literally what our weary souls are crying out for. And then the psalm gives us this beautiful daily rhythm: declare his steadfast love in the morning and his faithfulness by night. I mean, just think about that for a second. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, you're bookending your entire day by remembering two core things: God's steadfast covenant love, that's his loyal, can't-break-it commitment to you, and his faithfulness, his perfect track record of keeping every single promise. So why is this rhythm so important? Why the constant repetition? Well, because, as Calvin also said, our hearts are like perpetual factories of idols. We're just forgetful people, we drift. And the second we forget God's steadfast love, everything else starts to feel shaky and unstable. This rhythm, it's our anchor. And let's be clear, this is not about trying to psych yourself up or manufacture some feeling out of thin air. The psalmist says, "You, O Lord, have made me glad by your work." The key is that our joy is rooted in something objective, something real that God has actually done. And for us, that finds its ultimate expression in the cross and the resurrection, God's ultimate work on our behalf. So you see, this is how God starts to restore the soul. It's not about trying harder, it's about remembering better. Remember his love, remember his faithfulness, remember his works, and remember his deep, deep wisdom. This is the foundation that brings us back to the rescue of his grace. All right, let's move into our second stage and see how this all connects. Because if the first step is remembering God's grace, the second is all about seeing our present reality correctly. And let's be honest, when we're tired and discouraged, it's incredibly easy to misinterpret what's happening all around us. Augustine just nails his tension perfectly. He's basically saying that what looks like a win in the short term, people who ignore God and seem to be flourishing, can actually be a form of injustice when you zoom out to an eternal perspective. And that disconnect, man, that can be so discouraging when you're in the thick of it. And the psalm gives us this absolutely brilliant metaphor to help us see clearly. On the one hand, you've got the wicked, who are compared to grass. Sure, they sprout up fast, they look green and lush for a season, but their roots are shallow and their success is totally temporary. But then you have the righteous, who are like a mighty cedar of Lebanon. Their growth is slow, methodical, but they're growing deep, stable, and enduring roots. The fool only sees the quick grass and calls it success. Wisdom understands the long-term strength of the cedar. And right in the middle of this comparison, you get this verse. It is the turning point, the pivot for the entire psalm. But you, O Lord, are on high forever. The wicked might seem to be rising, but God reigns. Their success might look big right now, but his rule is eternal. This one line just changes our entire perspective. So what do we do with this? What are the takeaways? Here are 4 crucial disciplines for a weary heart. 1, don't envy what is temporary. 2, don't measure your life by what is immediate. 3,
Don't ever assume that what you can see right now is the final reality. And maybe most importantly, 4, do not let your discouragement rewrite what you know to be true about God. Okay, so we've looked backward to grace, and we've learned to see the present with wisdom. But there's still that nagging question, right? Especially when we're exhausted. It's the question, will I make it? Am I actually going to endure? Our final stage of remembrance tackles this head on with the solid hope of the gospel.
The psalmist uses this amazing imagery. You have exalted my horn like that of the wild ox. You have poured over me fresh oil. A horn in the ancient world was a symbol of strength and power. So to have your horn exalted means that God himself is the one lifting you up and making you strong. And the fresh oil, that's an image of anointing, of refreshment, of being set apart. So our endurance doesn't come from us gritting our teeth. It comes from God's ongoing, personal, refreshing grace.
And this right here, this is the key to the whole thing. The righteous aren't just surviving out there on their own. They are planted. And where are they planted? In the house of the Lord. Their life, their stability, their ability to endure, it all flows from being rooted in God himself, in his presence, his promises, and his unbreakable faithfulness. And look at the promise that flows from that. This is a direct answer to the fear that our strength will just fade away. The psalm says that those planted in God will still bear fruit in old age, that they'll be ever full of sap and green. This means your best days of fruitfulness aren't behind you. If you are planted in him, your fruitfulness is secure for your entire life. So as we start to bring this all together, let's just see what this means for us. It's what we're calling the endurance of the remembered. In other words, the enduring strength that comes from the act of remembering. This isn't just a random collection of nice ideas. It's a complete path, a divine prescription for the weary soul. It's a simple, threefold act of remembrance. First, you look to the past and you remember the rescue of grace. Second, you look at your present through the lens of wisdom. And third, you look to the future with the confident hope of the gospel. This holy repetition, past, present, future, is the very thing that fuels our endurance. So, here's the most important point of all. If you are weary today, if you feel like you're just barely hanging on, please hear this. Your spiritual life is not ultimately sustained by how tightly you can hold on to God. It is sustained by the unshakable, unbreakable reality of his grip on you. And this is where the psalm leaves us, with this final, powerful, unshakable declaration. This is the testimony our lives are meant to become, that the Lord is upright, that he is our rock, and that in him there is absolutely no unrighteousness. And that truth, when we remember it, is more than enough, not just to survive the battle, but to endure it with a deep and lasting hope.